Hello my dear sewing friends, it's Alisa here and welcome to a new episode of Made from Scraps. If you're new here, then this is a series where we take fabric scraps and we turn them into beautiful and modern garments by using the skills that we have, a little bit of imagination, a little bit of creativity, put it all together and ta-da! And if you're one of my regular subscribers and viewers, thank you so much for coming back. I think that today we're in for another really interesting garment. I'm happy to report that my fabric scrap pile is finally getting a little bit smaller, which is definitely a success. And today I want to play around with some of these cotton fabric scraps that I have. I have them in a variety of colors, but the two that I have my eye on are white and blue. Now I know it doesn't sound exciting just yet, but I will humbly ask for a little bit of your trust because I think there's definitely a way how we can make it into something fabulous. In terms of the size and the amount of the fabric, this is what I have when it comes to the blue cotton. It's kind of almost like a rectangle, which is nice, and I do know it has all sorts of fuzz on it. I have to lint roll it. And when it comes to the white cotton, it's definitely a little bit more awkward. This particular piece is what was left over from when I did my shirt upcycle. This was used for the sleeve. I think given what I have in the size, we're going to work on the top. And of course, as always, we have to start with the pattern. And as you know, I usually suggest either a raglan top, this was made from the fabric scraps as well, or for example, a button-up shirt or button-up blouse, because there you have a lot of different divisions already. Therefore, it makes it a little bit easier if you're just starting your adventure with fabric scraps. But also, there's another thing that is really great for combining different fabrics together, and that is if you have a princess seam. And the princess seam can go into the armhole, it can go into the shoulder, it can go a lot of different directions. So I think today I might play around with that. To get started, I'm reaching for my woven bodice block with darts and copying that on a fresh piece of tracing paper. Now you can find a full step-by-step tutorial for a bodice block on my channel, or alternatively you can also use the one that you already have. Now once we're done with tracing, let's make a couple of adjustments for the design of this project. I'm going to start with the front pattern piece, and I want my princess seam to go through the shoulder. So I have roughly divided my shoulder seam in half and then connected it to the bust apex with a slightly curved line. From there, I'm taking a straight perpendicular line right to the hem. Now let's close the original dart and add notches, and of course repeat the same steps on the back. The next step on my agenda after this is to baste a quick muslin together because I need to see if the proportions are right and how the combination of two colors is going to look in this garment. As you know, with everything in life, there's two sides to the coin, right? So as much as I love working with fabric scraps and turning them into beautiful garments and projects, there's always the flip side. And the flip side is that the margins of error are so thin, you basically have none. So you have to really think it through again, and then make sure that whatever you're doing, you either have a back plan or you're 100% sure in how this is going to come out. So with fabric scraps, on the one side, it's great because your creativity has all of these materials to work with and prints, and you can put them together. And as a lot of you have mentioned, working with fabric scraps is basically free. You know, all you have to invest is your time and a little bit of your imagination. But on the flip side is that if you do something and it doesn't pan out, chances are you can't really do much about it because that's it. That's all you had to work with. So in this case, making a muslin of an untested design is definitely a way for me to dot my I's and cross my T's. Now I did try it on once I basted it all together, and I do have a couple of adjustments I would like to make, so I will show them to you on this mannequin. Now a lot of you ask me where did I get this dress form, and it's actually not a dress form. This is just a home decor mannequin that I got at Joann's years ago. It doesn't really pin that well. It's not my size. That's why sometimes when I put form-fitting stuff on it, it pulls a little bit because the bust here is bigger, the waist here is smaller. I just use it because I have it, but it's definitely not a dress form. As you can see from what I was doing, I had to adjust the length of the hem, then the scoop of the front and the back neckline, and I also decided to take in the side seam by a little bit. Now the next step is to transfer all of these markings from a muslin onto a paper pattern, and after that, hopefully with fingers crossed, see if I actually have enough fabric scraps for this project to work out. With that being said, I'm not sure if you know it or not, but every time that I start a fabric scrap video, every time I press record, I actually have no clue how the final result is going to look like. I have a vision, I have an idea, and approximate steps that I'm going to take, but a lot of times right in the middle there something happens, or the technique doesn't work out, or man, I ran out of fabric or whatnot. And I hope that this shows the reality of working with fabric scraps. As I mentioned before, it does take a little bit longer, but every time you build that muscle and every time it goes a little bit easier, a little bit faster, a little bit more fun. And as always, I want to encourage you to give this a try. All right, I think I'm finally ready to cut. I did my best in order to estimate the amount of fabric that I have and the direction of the grain and how I'm going to cut it. So let's do this. So I managed to cut everything that I needed, but not without piecing. So you will see here in a minute that the back pattern is made up from 3 fabric pieces. And it sort of partially does work out because I do need to insert a zipper in order to get in and out of this garment. This is the first thing that I need to get done sewing wise, because after this I want to transform this white cotton into a fabric with print by doing block printing. It can definitely be somewhat of a messy endeavor, so I'm wearing my home crafty clothes and an apron because once it's on the fabric, it's gonna stay on the fabric. But I think all this trouble is definitely going to be worth it. I've been dabbling in block printing for just about a year now, and I've also tried my hand at cutting my own stamps, so I think that's what I'm going to be using today. Now I'm going to start by mixing the color that looks just like the blue cotton that I'm going to be using as a secondary fabric in this garment. After that, well, let's get started with stamping. Now it's definitely harder than it looks, and I'm still very much learning, but it is a great fun and very creative, so I would for sure recommend it. Now this time I'm using a block printing ink for fabric, so it is all permanent and wash fast. The cure time and how the ink sets on fabric just really depends on the type that you use and on the manufacturer's instructions. All right, are you ready to see it? Well, here it is. These are the pieces that I block printed. While the ink is drying, let's go ahead and cut out the other pattern pieces from the blue cotton. Now, while I was situating the patterns on the fabric, I had an idea that came to mind. So since I did straighten out the side seam during the adjustments and now it's almost completely straight, then I thought, why don't I just make it one continuous pattern piece and cut it without the side seam at all? So I thought about it and I decided to run with it, and this is what the final pattern piece looks like when all cut out. Then from whatever blue I have left, I'm going to cut bias tape, which will go on the hem of the sleeves, and I think that that will add a really nice contrasting detail. After the sleeve, I sewed the shoulder seam of the side panel and finished the armhole with bias tape as well. Next, I will sew the shoulder seams of the front and the back, and after that, we can finally start putting it all together. First goes the sleeve because it needs to be sandwiched between two fabrics, the blue and the white. As a result, the front and the back will be sewn all in one go. Now each seam is done with a straight stitch first and then finished with a serger. And after one side is done, of course we will need to repeat all of the same steps on the other one. From here, I have a hem to finish, which is going to be simply double folded, and then of course the neckline, which is going to be finished with a bias tape. With all of this done, I hope you're ready to take a look at the final result. I also made a second version of exactly the same pattern, but this time in knit fabric, and you will be able to see both of these garments up close, inside and out, in the newest Members Extra deep dive video. We'll talk about techniques, so we'll talk about the drape of the fabric and how it matters, and all of the extras. So if you are a member, thank you so much for your support, and check out your members perks. And if you're not a member and you're wondering what it is all about, you will see that in the description of this video. Now, if you want to see more projects from fabric scraps, then check out this video. I recently showed you my entire handmade summer wardrobe, which has a lot of projects made from fabric scraps. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy, thoughtful sewing. Bye!